All right, good evening. I thought what I'd do to start out tonight is to just give you a little context on Kansas City. When John Covington took over as superintendent in the fall of 2009, the district was really in crisis. In terms of low student performance, in 75% of our schools, less than 25% of the students were proficient. The state had found in its review that we had no viable and guaranteed curriculum. They also found that the district was not using data to inform its decisions. And then overall, it cited the district on its lack of quality in instruction. And really that hit four key areas. In terms of climate and culture, there was really a revolving door at the district, not only in terms of staff, but in terms of programs. So what you were seeing is with every new superintendent, and we had had about 26 in 30 years, there were new programs coming in, there was that constant change. And in addition, there was a culture of if there was professional development, it was typically being paid. So those were some issues we had there. Then we had a lot of gaps that we were seeing in terms of instruction as well as content. Given the fact that a lot of the teachers really saw the curriculum as their textbook, we were seeing a lot of teachers that were struggling in how to teach some of that content. We also had a teacher evaluation system that was not only outdated, but it really wasn't used. Most teachers weren't getting evaluated at all. So that was another area of concern. And then finally, in terms of integrated systems, you know, I counted at one point last year, I think there were about 15 places that teachers had to go in order to get data or to get information on their students. So all in all, we had a lot on our plate. So here's what we did. Last school year, the first thing we did is we went through a right-sizing process and we closed just under half the schools. We then initiated PLCs, PBS, and that was when we started our relationship with PD 360. One of the things that we noticed at the end of the year is that in terms of PD 360, it was the first time that we actually saw teachers who were going out on their own without it being mandated and actually searching for content. We actually saw at the end of the year that our teachers had viewed over 40,000 segments. And so taking that information, we decided we were going to use that as an anchor as we move forward and try to put an integrated system in place for our teachers. Then this current school year, what we did is we opened a teaching and learning center for teachers. We moved to a system of standards-based schools. 5 of our schools are no longer graded. Students are placed in terms of their instructional level. And then we began working on the systems that I'm going to show you here, which is basically we took all three, Learning 360, Observation 360, and PD 360, and we put together one integrated system for our teachers. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually show you these different pieces with our data to give you a sense of how that works for our teachers. I'm going to start with Learning 360. And what we did is, before I mentioned that we didn't have that viable and guaranteed curriculum, so this summer we brought in Heidi Hayes Jacobs' team, and they worked with 100 teachers all summer to put together curriculum frameworks in our content areas. So I'm going to just escape out of this and I'm going to pop into that so you can see. Now, one of the things we wanted to do with this is PD 360 partnered with Agilix to create this system for us. And what it does is, not only does it give the teachers their unit maps, and I've just pulled up a 9th grade English one, but it also allowed us to place, if I go into the resources here, what you're going to see is we embedded a place for the Common Core project. So as you go down, you can see teachers have access to our adopted resources, independent reading resources, web resources, other kinds of reading and activities. But you'll see right here where we have model lessons, we've also embedded PD 360 lessons, so teachers can actually go out and see for those power standards about master teachers teaching the content. The other piece that we did as part of this system is when we said one place, we really meant one place. We wanted all of our assessment systems to be here as well. And so what we've done, and I'm going to just show you an example, you can see all of these assessments can be taken by the students. And then what happens is the teacher receives immediate feedback. So I've jumbled the names. This is just an example of a common assessment. So if I actually go into this student that had a 46% as a teacher, what's going to happen is all of that student's work is going to pop up for me or the parent if the parent goes in. But more importantly, it links the teacher back to the standards. So they get a running record for the entire school year of all of that student's work that's either a common assessment or something that's rubric driven. Hold on, let me try one more time. See if it's going to come up for me. There it goes. All right, so take a look at this. This is probably one of the most powerful pieces of information for our teachers, because typically, so you can see here all of the assignments for the student, but as we go up here into the learning objective mastery, this particular common assessment that I clicked in had 4 of the Missouri standards, and you can see on the first one the child had an 80%. They got nothing right on that standard, 40% of the next, and 100% of that. Now, if I were to click on the review button, what that would do is bring up all of the interventions that we've loaded for that standard, because all of the learning targets are linked to the standards. So that was the first integration we did with PD360 in terms of the Common Core, integrating the software for teachers. And then we moved on to our teacher evaluation, in which we began to work with Observation 360. We identified 5 performance standards for teachers. The first dealt with content, the second with practice, and the third with climate and culture. Now, the beauty of Observation 360 is, and if they go ahead and click on the observations, what you're going to see is you can build multiple templates. So you're going to see mine, and I have all of those that we've loaded for the district. Schools just have the ones that are related to schools. But what I want you to see here is we're not just using it for our standards, but we're also using it for our federal programs compliance. We're using it for our health facilities reviews. We have school improvement grants from the state of Missouri that have an observation. So we're able to take all of those things that we need and load it. So I'm going to have you guys go ahead and just pick standard, go down to standard 1. All you do is click on a school. Then you go in and click on, you can just click on any teacher. And what it does is it takes you into the system. Now, we worked on developing this particular tool. We actually worked with our union because, guys, if you just click on the None button, the first one is learning targets, or the second one, targeted 1 or more learning targets. So it's basically, you weren't looking at that day, they didn't show it, they needed improvement, it was sufficient or it's strong. But one of the concerns that your union had is a principal could just keep choosing new needs improvement, and how does that help our teachers? So what we built in is a tool, so if they selected it, they would have to go back in and say, this is either the first time that I'm selecting it, I've previously observed this teacher and there's been no improvement, I've previously observed and there's some improvement, or there's been considerable improvement. So we tried to build in those things that would make sure that we were getting feedback to teachers. Now, if you go up to the top, just kind of scroll back to the top, you're going to see it says save or upload. So you can either at that point save it or you can upload it. There's comment sections that are built in throughout the tool that if you touch on them, go down a little bit further. Yeah, okay, you've already touched on comments, but you can basically just type in your comments with the keypad. But let's say you decided that you needed a rather lengthy comment and you didn't want to use the actual keyboard that's on the iPad, you wanted to go back and think a little bit. You can actually just hit save at the top. And what it does is it goes to a menu bar on the left and it sits there until you actually do something with it. So these are a set of those that I did last week that need to be uploaded. You can see how it works there. When you bring it back up, you upload it when you're ready. So now let's jump away from that and go into the PD360 site so you can see now what happens. Now instead of just a district level folder where you can load content or a state level folder, you've also got an observation folder, and this is my observation folder. It shows anyone that I've done observation of, but it also shows, and I've just got some mock ones in here for me that I can show you the reports. So for Mary Esselman, if I go down here and pick one of my reports, what it does is it actually gives me, as soon as that's sent, a report that shows each of the responses that I received. But it also has arrows here that's going to actually let me as a teacher look and see what it is, the video contents that's been loaded. So for example, here where it says the teacher linked the subject matter to prior learning, I can actually click on that as a teacher. It immediately takes me into my PD360 account and I can watch the video. Now when Chet was showing you the new program and he showed you that journal feature, I as a teacher now know that my principal says that I need some improvement here. I can pop on that, create journal notes, and then watch the video.
With Velcro, once it is attached, the object needs to be connected to other things.
I'm going to show you. Steve got it right.
Educators must help students make connections from experience to experience.
So you kind of get a sense of that one. I'll just show you one more. So what this does is we actually, with the help of PD360, went in and loaded content for each of those. I think as we go down here, there's another one that's on technology. So here's one for teachers that actually shows an example of a lesson that would effectively integrate technology.
At Fire Prairie Middle School in Independence, Missouri, students in Ruth Skagg's science class have been learning about weather.
They've been learning about weather instruments, they've been learning about weather patterns. One of the teachers has them make a poster, and it shows the weather for a day. But I wanted to take that and make it into a multimedia project, and so what I did was I opened a PowerPoint.
To further develop and test their knowledge, Mrs. Skaggs is having her students build animations in a PowerPoint presentation. The students must incorporate their understanding of weather patterns.
So you can get a sense of how that works. Now I'm going to go to the admin tools. So this shows you some of how we're using it with our teachers. But what it does for administrators is it allows them to actually look at these reports and look in their practice. And one of the things we found as we were looking at some of these individual reports is it helps us assist our principals as well. So for example, at the end of November, when we were looking through the walkthroughs, we found that in some of our lowest performing schools, where less than 15% of the students were proficient, we were looking through the reports, all of the teachers were showing sufficient and strong. And so one of the things you're going, okay, there may be a disconnect there, and the rigor levels were showing as 5s. So that gives us an opportunity with the principal to go in and to take a look at and parallel walk, and then some of the report features that are here allow us to look at each of the walkers and the results of their actual reports. So I'm going to just show you one report so you can see what happens. And the nice thing about these reports is they come up instantly. So even if you're building your own custom reports, it actually allows you, I have kind of a weird echo, sorry. It actually allows you to immediately see the reports. One of the other things I didn't mention earlier is the fact that for us, all of our buildings aren't wireless. So one of the features that was important to us was the ability to not have to have wireless whenever you're doing these. And so what happens is, as long as you log in where there's wireless, you do all of your templates in a cache system, and then it's only when you're ready to upload that you actually have to be back in a wireless environment. So these are all the standard reports that exist, and then you obviously have the capability to customize. I'm going to go ahead and just pull in the general one, which is the one that basically gives you a read on all of the principles. Each you can look at individual schools, or you can look at it as a district. Let me try that again. Now, one of the things while we're waiting is, as you look at those 12 reports, there's a combination of district level accountability reports, as well as a series of reports that can be used by the individual principal. Now the nice thing is, if you do your observations and you upload them on the same day, you can actually use them at a staff meeting that afternoon. I'm going to pull in a school, let me see. So I could click Central, I could click Kansas City and it would click them all, or I can basically go down and select. This is one of our turnaround schools. It was reconstituted this fall. And this will give you an idea. You simply just submit your report. Once you've selected your school, you notice on the right that you can actually select a time band. I'm just selecting year to date because we basically started full implementation at the beginning of November. Here we go. All right, so basically what you see when you do the reports is it gives you a percentage read as well as a count, and then it goes through and it graphs it for you. So as a principal, you can immediately project the same day as you're doing them. So on these you can see that there's a mixture of, as you look, the needs improvement is the gold band, sufficient is the red band, not observed, meaning it wasn't something they looked for, is the purple band, and then the turquoise band is strong. So it gives you that read on any of your questions. So that's just a little glimpse of how we're using the various programs in Kansas City. Some of the next steps for us, I'll go back to my slideshow. Next steps for us is we're really going to be focusing on the social networking. We found that as we moved to standards-based schools this fall, that once teachers had an opportunity across those 5 pioneer schools to begin to have conversations with teachers who were teaching the same levels, that they were really hungry for that opportunity to interact. And we're feeling like the network features are here is something that we really haven't taken a lot of advantage of. The Common Core project, where we start embedding more videos in our Learning 360 program, is a critical focus for us. And then our last is we were awarded one of the TIF grants for pay for performance. So we're going to be using the data from some of our walkthrough templates to add to our value-added growth model to try to create a more robust model as we move forward. So that just gives you a glimpse of what's happening in Kansas City. Thank you for your time.